brothers with a younger sister. So he is the third in the line for the Beoulve clan, a member of the Order of the Northern Sky. He is a Capricorn, ladies. A naive youth who understands through tragedy that good deeds that only benefit the few aren't good at all, and seeks to temper the world through justice and fights for equality regardless of the cost to himself. The dude's a hero. That's the whole point. He enjoys playing reed flutes, making new friends, and overthrowing the church. We're going over Ramza for War of the Visions, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius today. This is Spoot with Fort Misery Gaming, and here we go. So we've got his TMR down at the bottom left. We've got his max stats, job level, the whole 9 on the left side. And then we're going to be going over his calculator stuff. This is probably going to be about as comprehensive as we get. Obviously, certain quality of life changes will be noticed, and I will comment on them as they come up, just as ability toggling is going to change some of these characters very drastically. But we'll at least start from here. So, let's take a run at Ramza. So, classes. His main job is Squire. You get some pretty decent abilities out of that. We're not going over the abilities yet. Spellblade is his sub-job. So his main job and his first sub-job are kind of rare. You don't really run into many Squires so far in For the Visions, and there are only, I believe, 1 or 2 other Spellblades in Japan, and I could be very wrong on that. There may only be 1. A ninja is pretty common. You see that one a lot. He equips regular one-handed swords for weapons. Armors are hat, helm, cloth, and an accessory, so he's kind of a light armor guy. His TMR, Ramza's clothes, or Ramza's outfit. It is a cloth chest, gives you 422 HP, 8 defense, and it gives you a critical avoid modifier of 12. This is, in essence, a crap ton more luck. It also gives you the Entrust ability, which as you level up takes you anywhere from 10 times TP to 25 times TP for the cost of 20. It's pretty decent. I don't know how often the AI is ever really going to cast it, since there is an issue sort of with TMR abilities getting used on AI. In manual, it lets you sort of game the system for who you want to hit the hardest, the fastest. But in AI, or auto, it's a little more questionable. You have the master ability that increases slash attack by 10, and it's a flat 10% increase to HP. That's pretty good. Slash attack is always a huge modifier at the end. Anything adding on to your damage modifiers tends to be valued higher than just flat attack percentage. Other than, equipment stats. Increase HP by 10% just makes him slightly more tankier. You can see his board slot stats, his unit stats with job level 1. He has a move of 3, he has a jump of 2, those are pretty standard. Now at max level, his stats are pretty impressive. He gets 2k HP, which for a not tank, quote unquote, it's pretty strong. Like anything over 1800 really, because that's where a lot of the crit ranges lie for medium to sort of medium high tier characters. He has an attack of 264, magic of 239. He is a hybrid character. He has abilities that both use physical attack and mag as their stat, so keep that in mind. He has a decent amount of AP, pretty fast. His speed is 52. He's got a decent amount of pretty much everything. His agility goes up to 19, so I think it goes actually slightly higher than that, but that may just be his jobs, because I think that's, yeah, here we go, so 32. Looks like, well, it's decent. He's quick. And with some of its abilities being agility buffs, you're going to often have him or his allies go significantly faster anyway. So keep this in mind when if you were lucky enough to get Ramza and you have him at LB 3 or 4 or maxed, he gets very dangerous very quickly. Resistance to elements, he has your natural minus 10% to dark because of typing. He's not naturally resistant to any other element. However, he does have 15% damage resistance to slashing, striking, and projectile, which is missile, I believe. He has a 10% weakness to magic damage, which is not the best or the worst. Sid also is kind of not great at it, and Angle takes huge hits. So it's it's kind of a thing. Magic users tend to be able to strike these guys really hard, so you do have to keep that in mind when you're building them. Natural status ailments. He has a 50% resistance to silence and slow. Both of silence less important than slow, but slow still, they're both good to have. He has a 10% confusion resistance, also very strong. Not the best or the worst, but it's good. Any freebie you can get on any character usually is going to be worth its weight. His support abilities. Acquire JP up, great for leveling. You can get up to 100% increased JP if you put the crystal card on him, which gives you the additional 50. It gets sincerely ridiculous very, very quickly how much JP he gets. Providence of Darkness. This is from Spellblade. Increases magic resistance up to 12%, starts at 5. Increases dark resistance, starts at 5% up to 12. That does negate his dark resistance weakness entirely. He does end up at a positive of 2%. Not that that is going to be a massive difference in any swing, but damage mitigation is damage mitigation. Not taking as much is better than having to heal it later. He has move +1. He has Shadowrunner and Shikuchi. Out of these, you have most of the time, depending on what you are running up against, most people are going to say Shadowrunner and Shikuchi, and arguably Providence of Darkness are the ends here. Shadowrunner increases your agility by 12% and his luck by 12%. It makes him one of the luckiest units in the game, so evasion turns into an actual literal thing. Also crit evasion. His luck going up 12% is nuts. Agility going up 12% is strong, especially when applied to an already reasonably high agility base, especially with his abilities. Shikuchi is just your standard ninja, move 1, jump 1, just lets him get in further and get around certain pieces of terrain that most people wouldn't be able to get to, with a jump of 3 and a movement of 4. Your mileage is going to vary between these when the new Stern comes out, and depending on how your PvP and your Guild Wars goes, you can always just avoid dark units. They're not the most popular in the meta, especially with Lucia had just come out, so not an insane problem in any direction to really worry about that. If you just want him to be able to go fast, hit hard, and get in, Shadowrunner and Shikuchi are going to be your bread and butter. Providence of Darkness is going to give you that little bit more magic resistance and that little bit more dark resistance. And at max, like I said, they put him at positive, even though it is just 2% resist. But again, mitigation is better than triage. His counter abilities. These are kind of argued against because they're very situational depending on what kind of teams you're running into. Counter Tackle is a counter to all damage, so you get a chance to counter all damage at 30%. It goes up to 121% modifier, which is pretty decent, but it's in melee range. Obviously, if you're going up against gunners or mages, this is not nearly as good. Chance to counter magical damage on Magic Guard, it goes up to 20%, starts at 10. Reduces the damage taken 15 to 45. This one's okay. It will be useful more later when you start seeing more of the powerful mages. Kirlia and the mathematician waifu, when she comes out. I always forget her name because it's a little weird. Significantly more powerful at that point. Poison Barb has... It's still in melee, so you have to gauge it. You have a chance to counter all damage, a higher chance than counter tackle, but a smaller percentage hit. So it starts at, you have a 50% chance to inflict poison from 5 times to 15 times damage for 3 turns. But you have a 50% chance to counter the damage, so... It kind of comes down to what you're running into. Poison tends to be a little powerful in the game since it is cumulative, and added damage without you having to hit something is always a benefit. These things are arguable, I guess, but again, it's variable. Ramza has a kit that you can put him pretty much anywhere, and he's going to at least do well, which is not something you can say about a lot of characters. So let's look at his Squire abilities. You've got Shimmering Blade. Your modifier goes from 130 to 160 at max. You get 4 casts of it. It costs 14 AP, and it's got a crazy range on it. This is the ability that you are honestly, if you lean him a little more physical attack, or if you're building him hybrid, this is the one that he's probably going to nuke somebody with most of the time. It's this one and Taunting Spell have the highest range that aren't, you know, Stone Throw, but we're not going to talk about Stone Throw. I mean, we are because it's funny, but yeah. Shimmering Blade is pretty good at a low AP. The damage modifiers on it are respectable, so it's a decent enough hit. And for mages and stuff like that, it's gonna, if not outright kill them, do enough damage that they're very easily handled. So in PvP, it's pretty strong. Chant consumes own HP, so your max HP goes down by 10%, and it restores HP 180 times up to 210 times. Don't sleep on this ability. It's a good emergency heal. It's not the best in the game. He is not suddenly going to be a white mage, but if you need a dude to survive like one more hit, this is actually okay. It's a lot of people sort of giggle at Chant. It's actually usable. It's not the best, so don't quote me there, but it is decent. You've got Double Break, another physical one, 175 to 210, decreases attack and mag for 3 turns, starts at 5%, maxes at 25. If you really have to shut down a character, this is how you do it. 3 turns for a debuff that big is pretty good. Especially considering that you are also probably buffing your guys as well, so not too bad. Triple Blow is probably one of your go-to abilities as far as having a melee hit. It's a good chainer. You're just gonna slap him out there and do some damage. The modifier on it's pretty good. Shout, also the end of his Squire tree. Increase attack, mag, and bravery for 3 turns at a decent range for all characters. So attack and mag go from 10% to 30, and bravery goes 5% to 20%. So this is really 30% attack for 3 turns is pretty good. It's going to put a lot of mediocre DPS over that threshold to actually be able to one-hit kill, and it's really good for cleaning up groups too. Again, it's not an ability that's going to see a whole lot of use in AI, just because you don't really see buffs like that very often unless they're weird and niche and he can hit as many characters as possible, or he can't hit the enemy, which is very hard with Shimmering Blade, or Stone Throw for that matter, because he is going to chuck some rocks. Let me just go ahead and spoil that movie for you. You leave him on AI, he's going to hit a dude with a rock. Sub-job Squire abilities. You have Stone Throw, 5% to 13% damage, 5 AP, it's got range. You've seen this move. Mont does it all the time. Ramza's going to do it a significant amount of time. You have Steel, which increases Bravery 4 to 10. Bravery farming, fine, it's okay. It's not particularly great. Tailwind is where the sub-job kind of shines. You've got an increase to agility starting at 5% to 20% at 3 turns. It is 20 TP, so it's kind of expensive for a buff, but increasing your agility by 20% guarantees that faster characters are going to go 2 or 3 times before slower characters. Having your Stern, having your Gilgamesh with haste, having any character with haste, have their agility increased by 20% is going to make you lap characters like Engelbert or even the Warrior of Light when he comes out. They just don't have the agility to keep up with that much. Especially if you've got, Scion of House Beoulve or anything like that, where you are just passively increasing your agility through the roof anyway. That's the Squire. Decent enough. You have a lot of arguments between people. Some people will tell you that Squire is optimal. Other people will tell you Squire Spellblade is better for damage. It really depends on what role you need him in the most. Both of these are usable. I think people tend to lean more towards Spellblade because it's got some crazy damage output, but don't sleep on Squire. Like, Tailwind by itself is good enough to justify using the entire sub-job. It is. 20% agility is wild. Alright, Spellblade. You've got Bioblade, which is 140% to 170% damage, 25% to inflict poison, 5 times to 15 times for 3 turns. It's a melee hit, it's fine. Like I said, poison has a pretty good track record in this game. It does enough damage that it's justified. So having a dot on, and if you can't get to them or if your guy goes down to ensure a kill, is pretty good. You've got Banish Blade, which is 105 to 130%, 131%, excuse me. The issue with Bioblade is it's really expensive. Banish Blade is a little more bargain for your dollar. You've got 105 to 131% at max. It increases Dark Killer by 25 times, which is real good against certain heroes. If you just need to get in there and murder a Stern, which may not happen because he's going to throw a shuriken at you, that's how you do it. Resist Magic, it's at 12 AP too, so it's real cheap and it's pretty good. Resist Magic increases magic resistance starting at 18 to 38% for 3 turns. This turns him into a pseudo magic tank. It is not something you are going to rely on very often, but it does affect a pretty good chunk. It gives you the cross for affectation. The biggest issue is it's 35 TP, so it is a very expensive ability. You're probably not going to see the AI use this very often, but keep in mind in manual that this is a decent one. Taunting Spell. This one This one is very controversial. It has a lot of hate towards it just because you want a Shimmering Blade and he hits him with a Taunting Spell. Once Quality of Life ability toggle comes out, turning off Taunting Spell if he is not main tanking will probably be the move, and it will make Spellblade significantly more valuable. But Taunting Spell isn't, like don't sleep on it. At max, it does 121%, and if you need to take the heat off your tank and you think Ramza can hit it, yeah, I mean, take the hit. It's fine. It's not too bad. It's decent enough range. It's 18 AP. You're going to be able to hit it pretty easily. Does damage in a cross. Always good, especially if you can get somebody in the back line, like a mage or a gunner sitting beside each other. Like, this ability has reach, and it has the damage to actually do stuff. And then you've got one of his big hits. You've got Banish Blade. 170% damage to 205%, pretty big. It affects in a double cross, so it's 2 squares out in regular cross pattern. And it increases Dark Killer by 25 times. So if you want to kill a Stern or the upcoming Hate Armor Stern, that's how you do it. He is just going to pump this dude full of damage. There's not really a whole much more to say. It's 22 AP. Now, Spellblade abilities, with the exception of Resist Magic, which is technically a buff, are all mag-based. So outside of as you'll notice the little symbols, it's like the sword swing or the purple staff. This is all on WOTV Calculator, by the way. This is kind of the standard for figuring out modifiers, since they post them all as soon as they can get them updated and verified. So big shout out to them for doing the work. I'll leave you guys a link in the description so you can find them too, especially for Ramza. But I would recommend they're good dudes. Like, they do really, really good work. So, he is a hybrid character. He has a lot of attack. He has a lot of mag. His Esper build versus his usefulness are different. So your mileage is going to vary depending on what space you put him in. But his Spellblade abilities are all mag-based, and they hit like a truck. His ult is Ultima, so his Limit Break is Ultima, also mag-based, and it doesn't miss. So those are things to consider. I think it actually talks about that in a second. Yeah, we'll talk about that one in a second. Ninja. Arguably his worst subclass. There are niche uses for Ninja. Shuriken is not to be underestimated for how easy it is to just take somebody out of the back line immediately. Also, Utsutsemi, Poison Mist. Like, there are very, very useful abilities in Ninja. They're not great. So, Hide gives you, decreases your hate. Shuriken is a 95% to 120% in a wide area for 12 AP. So, like, if you need to kill somebody, Shuriken is guaranteed your way to go if you're trying to hit something squishy. It's just, the range on it is ridiculous. I'm not telling you that Ninja is better than the others, so don't take it that way. I am merely going over the usages of Ninja. Kotan's pretty decent range, 17 AP, got a decent amount of damage, 130% to 165. Poison Mist is a very interesting teleport. So you teleport to a unit and you teleport to a space and you AoE Poison Mist around you. It's cute, especially if things get bunched up in manual. You can do a lot of damage with this very quickly. Mostly because, we're not building poison resist and it's not natural for a lot of characters. So it's pretty funny. You've got Utsutsemi, which is evasion rate. You've got Decider of Fate, which is accuracy and a guaranteed crit. So it's fine. TM, Like, I don't think the AI is going to really ever use these things, so I'll leave that up to sort of your discretion on where you want to put them. Ultima, you've got 165% damage up to 200%. It goes out in a big AoE. Well, it's a cross, but the range on it is ridiculous. And it's got 100% accuracy. This means even if you are up against a team with almost max evasion, it will not miss. As they say, I guess they never miss. It is 49 AP, though. Very rarely are you ever going to see this cast, although the animation is sick. This is his honeycomb. This is his job tree. This is all standard. You've seen these for every character. It's not particularly difficult to figure these things out. Just showing it to you for, you know, more or less to give you an idea of what it looks like so you can maybe plan out your character. All right, so I'm going to leave that up and we're going to go over a couple of other small things. So, optimally, his builds tend to be Squire Spellblade. This is true kind of across the board. Most people argue it, but there are valid arguments to do Squire. Tailwind is ridiculously strong at all points in the game. Sometimes it's better to have your other two people going laps around the team as opposed to just hitting once really, really hard. Extended buffs tend to be very powerful, especially when you get to like tower or you do manual PvP. For like Guild Wars and Arena, you may not really notice the difference because those tend to be over really quickly anyway. So you have the ability to build Ramza sort of in any direction you want as far as content. He does a lot. He's not the best at a lot of things, but he does a lot of things very good. I got Jones done the should you pull Ramza originally, and people were like, you need to reevaluate this guy. And like, having seen him played, I still agree. He's fine. He's not. I don't think he is like God's gift to War of the Visions that everybody was trying to hype me up for. Like, the dude's good, but he isn't like the second coming of Jesus Christ or anything. Although, if he was, I wouldn't be surprised, because that man literally overthrew a church. Ninja also has arguments for being usable, but I will 100% tell you right out the gate, right here, that would be suboptimal. I do not believe it is as strong as his other two options, but there are arguments for shuriken. Like, sometimes you just have to chuck a shuriken at a dude and hope for the best. Like, I can't really argue with anybody on that. Alright, so, vision cards. This is where... like, you put Scion of House Beoulve on him. Like, it's got the stats he needs. It's a good hybrid card. I guess if you didn't have that one, you could put... I don't know. He doesn't really have, like... there's not a whole lot of movement on there. Like, you could put an agility card on him, or like a percentage damage to kind of take him over the edge. Like, Odin vision card is always insane because Human Killer by itself is ridiculously powerful and attack resistance across the board is pretty strong. So, like, I'm not gonna really jump you on that one. It's just good. I think most of the time you're going to see it with Scion of House Beoulve on him. It's fine. You may occasionally see Shiva on him, Freezer of All, because you get the evasion rate and you get 170 mag on it. So if they're going hard Spellblade, you will probably see a Shiva. Plus party evasion is always a benefit. It's a big Reddit shrug from me. I don't want to tell you that either one of them is better than the other, because Ramza is one of those guys that you are going to sort of build him how you need him, so your mileage is going to vary, because he can do a lot of things. Like, that's the big trick. Espers. If I were putting an Esper on him, I would probably put... would I put Ramu on him? I would probably put Ramu on him. I think there's an argument for Shiva. I don't think Odin's very good on him. Golem is fine if you need to turn him into sort of a pseudo-tank, but I don't think necessarily that's his best bet. A lot of people put Iron Giant on him to sort of push his attack over. If you're going straight attack, that is fine. He's decent enough. You're not really going to hurt in any direction. I think the popular ones, if you're going for stat spread versus effect, would either be Shiva or Ramu for the mag up. If you're going, kitten, please. My cat is losing her mind in the background. I would go Shiva or Ramu for the mag up if you're going Spellblade. So that's it for Espers. There's not really a lot to talk about just because, like, most people are going to lean into Spellblade, so he has a very set amount of uses in a direction. We did it. Right. Alright. So, since people default to Spellblade, a lot of people are going to be like, alright, well, we just go mag up. And that's true in a sense, since he is a hybrid character. If you're going for his mag abilities, that's where you want to go, but sometimes people want a little more balance, just in case you need a Shimmering Blade to do to death. So, Behemoth and Iron Giant are also fine. Like, you have more attack than magic at any point, depending on how you build them, but that's where equipment sort of comes in. So, since we all have Excalibur, that's kind of the default sword on him. If you're going for optimal, I would say you probably want to do a Nagnarok. A lot of people do Nagnaroks at +5. That seems to be the route. If you want evasion on him, usually you'll do either Hermes sandals if you have them. I don't. Or things like Sage's hat, I am relatively sure is the most popular item on him. Just because it gives you a chunk of... It has a passive evasion rate, which is really good. It gives you a decent amount of mag. Like, it's nothing crazy, but the HP on it's pretty good. And it gives you a little extra spirit if you build it at barrier. Although I think most of the time people are building evasion, which is sort of where it shines. But if you find yourself running into mage meta before too long, barrier isn't something to sneeze at. But I believe dodge is kind of the default for Sage's hat. Excalibur is just decent stats all around. It's got mag on it, it's got attack on it, it's got accuracy, and it's got a critical rate up. Like, all 4 of those stats are very, very good and are things you need. I don't know what TMR is best on him. I think his is fine, but I see a lot of people using Mons, the lion emblem. And I don't know if that's just strictly because of the spirit and the defense. Honestly, if I'm thinking about it, it's probably because of the effect, the rallying cry, so you get 15% agility, which I don't know if stacks with regular buffs. I would have to do some more research on that, but that is not my forte. I'm here to give you sort of the overview of it, not really the specific nuts and bolts. So, I think if you need HP, Ramza's outfit is fine. You are obviously going to have Mons TMR before anybody's, so if you have that, go with that. And if you LB4 him, like, you know, start where you can, not where you want to be. Like, a slightly better Ramza is always going to be better than the worst Ramza. And that is pretty much your overview for Ramza Beoulve from Final Fantasy Tactics. There's not a whole lot to go over post. He is, if I were going to tier list him, I would put him at a sub S, but maybe a mid A. He is very useful in a lot of arenas, in a lot of guild wars, in a lot of content. He's very good in the towers, which we do not have yet. He's also very good in elemental raids where he's appropriate, just because his buffs are very, very strong. He is one of the few units who has kind of a non-universal build for different things. Like, Engelbert and Sid, you are generally going to build one way because they have a 100% optimal build. Ramza has a little bit more flexibility, so you can kind of put him where you need him as opposed to hope that he fills the role that he is going to do anyway. So that's it. So like, comment, subscribe. Tell me how you built your Ramza. Like, if you got him maxed, are you liking him? Like, I know a lot of people were really burnt out on trying to get shards, so, like, I didn't pull him at all, regardless of me going about 70k in for Sid, so I get it. Like, chase limited units are always kind of a pain, but tell me how you're liking him. Tell me, like, if you have a niche use for him, give me a shout out. Be like, yo, I really like Poison Mist. It does the work. Like, if you find things that are being useful, please tell us about it. Like, I like hearing that stuff. I like hearing, like, these weird stories about niche use characters actually getting done. I do have Lucia plans next. We are going to start covering URs first, and then I'm going to go into the backlog and cover the SRs and MRs, since we're probably not going to have those updated anytime soon. And then, you know, the rares and the one neutral in our boys Azen. So that's it. That's Ramza Beoulve. This is Fort Misery Gaming. This is Spoot. Give us a like. Give us a comment. Tell us you hated it. Tell us you loved it. Tell us something.